15
want
years.
Hamas to be running Gaza anymore.
Exactly. Now you add in Hamas's strongest demand. The number one demand they have is they want any agreement they create with Israel to include a lasting ceasefire, a permanent one.
Mm-hmm.
One so that it will ensure that they're still there. Now that already contradicts Israel's primary objective. And so figuring out how to move forward with these two diametrically opposed positions has always been what's been the hurdle between all of these parties getting to an agreement.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, there's a Wall Street Journal reporter who's being detained by Russia, and there's an update on his status. What is it?
So his name is Evan Gershkovich, and he's been held for now more than a year, and he will face trial for espionage charges that Russia has accused him of, but both the Wall Street Journal, Evan Gershkovich, as well as the U.S. government have all said these are trumped-up charges.
Mm-hmm.
And so the State Department has already sort of gone through the process to consider him wrongfully detained. Mm-hmm. And so the U.S. is trying to come up with some sort of prisoner swap the way they did for Trevor Reed or Brittany Griner. But to this point, there has been very little success with Americans who have been accused of espionage in particular because it's such a serious accusation, especially in Russia.
But even without this process having reached its conclusion, the United States is pressing for Gershkovich's release.
100% they have, pretty much since the moment he was arrested last year. And they have pretty forcefully spoken out on his behalf, in part because he is a reporter who was doing his job.
So the United States has been involved in negotiating a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. What's the status of those talks now?
So at this exact moment, we've heard Hamas's response, which included requests for a number of changes to be made. Now, it's unclear exactly what all of those requests look like. That being said, we've heard from U.S. officials that some of them are very simple in nature and others are untenable. And so this was not the response the U.S. was looking for. If you ask Secretary Blinken or President Biden, they were hoping that Hamas would say, yes, we agree to this deal. And they didn't say that. Now, they didn't say, no, we are not agreeing to a ceasefire at all. They're saying, we want Israel to meet more of our demands. Mm-hmm. And so this is not what the U.S. was hoping for. The U.S. At this exact point are now going through the requests with the Egyptian and Qatari mediators that are helping in the negotiations to see what of these requests can be made and where there's sort of, whether there's room to go from here or not. That being said, this was a deal that Hamas had offered previously, that they've now added additional demands to. And so President Biden first laid out this deal publicly at the end of May, and it would include 3 phases, the first of which would last about 6 weeks. And during that time period, we would see a stop in the war. We would see a surge of humanitarian aid, much needed, going into Gaza. And the important part about that is without the war going on, it would allow for the aid to be distributed much more easily without as much risk throughout the entire Gaza Strip. The first phase would also include the withdrawal of Israeli forces from densely populated areas, the release of female and children Israeli hostages who have been held by Hamas since October 7th, as well as in exchange, thousands of Palestinians who are currently being detained in Israel will be released as well. The U.S. wants to see both Israel and Hamas agree to essentially that framework for phase 1. Mm-hmm. That's the objective, because where the disagreement lies is in phase 2. And so Israel has said since October 7th they want to ensure the destruction and the elimination of Hamas. Mm-hmm. And they mean that both militarily as well as from a governance stance, because they have been the government of Gaza for more than 15 years.
They don't want Hamas to be running Gaza anymore.
Exactly. Now you add in Hamas's strongest demand. The number one demand they have is they want any agreement they create with Israel to include a lasting ceasefire, a permanent one. Mm-hmm. One so that it will ensure that they're still there. Now that already contradicts Israel's primary objective. And so figuring out how to move forward with these two diametrically opposed positions has always been what's been the hurdle between all of these parties getting to an agreement.
Which is why the United States had wanted to do it in phases.
Exactly. And so that's really what the U.S.'s attempt was here. They wanted to see a stop in the fighting and then allow for additional negotiations to happen. The U.S. perspective being that while these negotiations are ongoing, we can stop the suffering from innocent Palestinians and inflicting more upon them, as well as allowing for more aid to get in. And yet Hamas still was unwilling to agree to that deal, which was one they had already proposed.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.